Welcome to Tone Deaf, a theater nerd's guide for their musically challenged spouse. I'm Kay, a musical theater nerd.
And I'm Warren. I'm musically challenged.
Alright, so today we are doing one of the two exceptions to my usual Black History Month rule this year.
Okay, let me see if I can remember what the exceptions are. No.
Well, my main rule...
Oh, no, I get to swear in this one?
No.
Oh, okay.
My main rule for these is that I try not to cover shows written by white people. I want to center...
Yes.
I want to center our voices, because everyone, it's why Ragtime wasn't during this, and why Once on This Island won't be Black History Month when we do it. It's because those are written by white people. Once on This Island, if I remember right, the person who wrote the book that it's based on was black, I think. But, because it's a Wren and Flaherty, it's still a white people musical, so even though it's a black cast, it's not necessarily what I consider a black musical. This is going to be an exception.
I mean, we can always do, I guess I would call that an ally show.
We can do
an ally show like
yeah,
March
that's probably more what it would be. It's where I will give you more freedom to not swear or to swear.
It's where oh, dang it. I thought I had a funny joke, but then it slipped away like so many others.
And I may loosen my restrictions as time goes on, but I really want to focus more on shows written by black people. But the next two episodes are going to be exceptions to that rule, because the one that we're doing next after this one is one of the ones that comes to almost everybody's mind except for yours when you think Black Hollywood musical. So we need to cover that one and talk about it. But I want to talk about the show that helped inspire it first. And that show is Green Pastures, or The Green Pastures, as it should be called. But I just wrote Green Pastures in my notes because I'm lazy. Don't be lazy, kids. Alright, so, like I said, it's the only it's an exception to my rule, so that you can have some context. Mark Connolly, who wrote the 1931 play The Green Pastures, was not black, but the film adaptation that we'll be watching in a moment was a landmark film at the time. And I'll start with the film because I wasn't getting as much information about the play as I wanted, and I have a feeling that this will never be performed again on stage. That this is one of those shows that, it's a good thing that we have video footage of it from this era, because otherwise we wouldn't know. It would just be, here's footnotes about it.
Does it say the N-word a lot?
It's been a long time. I don't think it does.
I was just trying to think of reasons why maybe it wouldn't.
We'll get into it, and you'll see pretty much right away what I'm talking about. But so, we'll start off with the studio era of Hollywood. So that runs from the 1920s to the 1950s. And according to an essay by G.S. Morris in the Bright Lights Film Journal, as well as a thesis that we're going to be using for the Cabin in the Sky episode, and I couldn't let myself go too far down the rabbit hole because I promised myself I wouldn't. I think you may have looked over when I was doing research and noticed that I was starting to have more and more tabs get open on my browser.
You always have a lot of tabs open, so I don't notice such things that I consider normal for you.
I had closed a bunch of tabs to make it easier, and then it was slowly increasing, and that was when I was like, I can't do this. But there were only 6 all-black Hollywood films during the Hollywood studio era, from 1920s to 50s. Yeah.
30 years. You say 5 or 6?
6. Oh, wow. And that is not counting shows that...
You got 2 a decade. No, K? A KK? You got 2 a decade. 1 every 5 years.
Mm.
That's about all you can say.
So, and it's not counting ones like Some people would try to argue Song of the South. No. There are other ones where, like, there's maybe a scene with a lot of black people in it, but it's not a all-black cast or mostly black cast. It's also, like, there are going to be films that are done by black directors, but they're not Hollywood. They're what would have been, like, independent at the time, so it's not majorly funded by a studio. These are majorly funded by a studio, and there's only 6.
Is Stormy Weather one of them?
Yes.
Okay.
In fact, I will read them off to you. So, this one is from 1930, or this one's from 1936, but before that we had Hallelujah and Hearts and Dixie, which were both 1929. Then after the Green Pastures, we have Cabin in the Sky and Stormy Weather, both from 1943, and Carmen Jones from 1954.
See, there you go. You got 2 in 1943. That's why there's such a gap.
Mm-hmm. And only 1 in the 30s. Yeah. Lovely times. And you can't even blame, like, oh, the Great Depression. Well, no, there's movies going on. There's still movies happening. Come on now.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, this one's going to also be the highest grossing all-black cast film until Carmen Jones in 1954.
Green Pasture?
Mm-hmm. With tickets selling at what was quoted in one of the sources, 6,000 tickets per hour on its opening day. And
wow.
In some theaters, it stayed in the theaters for a year.
Wow.
A year. This is like Avengers, but problematic. but not problematic for the time.
See, and then my brain was just going, okay, let's get all black superheroes that do their own Avengers thing.
I would watch that. I would
too.
Anyway, it earned an estimated $3,300,000 by 1939, and it only cost $800,000 to make.
So that's what you call a successful product.
Yes. However, we're gonna watch the trailer because Warner Brothers was really nervous about watching an all-black film. I'm gonna show you the trailer right now, and you can tell me what you think Warner Brothers did to make white people less nervous.
Oh, hi, Cooper. What's the matter? What's wrong? Why whimpers?
What's wrong? Whimpers? You're gonna watch something that made Mom go, are you kidding me?
I've got the Hall Johnson Choir at 3 o'clock. What about 4?
That's fine.
All right, I'll be in the art department at 4 o'clock. Did they put the smokestack on the ark yet?
Oh, yes.
Is it simple?
Kept it very simple.
That's
And, Mr.
good.
Conley, why do we keep the sets all so simple?
Because The Green Pastures is a story of heaven and of earth as it might be imagined by very simple, devout people. And they look at heaven and they look at earth in terms of their own daily experience. Now, in the picture, we're going to try to convey the impression that the players somewhere in Louisiana found all the settings that we're going to show. Whether they're the Lord's office in heaven, or the big fish fry in heaven, or the nightclub in Babylon, or the fall of Jerusalem, whatever it might be. They must look as though they were places that the actors might have found somewhere in the world that they knew. Otherwise, we won't be able to convey the impression that that heaven is genuine, or that that earth is genuine. We may have hundreds of people dancing in a Babylonian revel, but if you look closely, you'll see it's just a little nightclub that they're dancing in.
I understand, Mr. Conley. Thank you.
At the preview of The Green Pastures, along with the rest of the audience, I was handed a card on which I was asked...
Okay, Pencil Stash, this better not disappoint. I don't remember who that guy was, and I don't really care. He's probably dead now.
Well, I didn't even write his name down because I didn't care either.
We're so cynical.
We're so cynical. So, What did you notice was missing from that trailer?
The people who are gonna be in it?
Yes, because white audiences were still racist, and the idea of an all-black movie...
So they basically had to say, hey, this movie is really good. We had to do all this interesting stuff to see it. So you should go see it, because it's pretty good. But if they said, hey, Warner Brothers is doing this all-black movie, people would be like, I don't want to go see that.
Mm-hmm. And I loved your reaction as it started dawning on you.
Well, when he started saying simple people, that's some coded language there.
I will tell you, when I first watched the trailer, I screamed. I did a very "you've got to be kidding me" scream, but I'm saying it PG for our audience.
Yeah, the other thing that nitpicky is when they said Noah's Ark depicting the destruction of the universe.
Yeah.
You can't flood the universe.
No.
There's not enough water to flood the universe.
Yeah, and, biblical scholar issues aside...
What do you know about biblical scholarship?
Oh, just did a lot of study of it.
Minister in training and all.
Yeah. That... You can tell with this trailer, you weren't supposed to know that there was an all-black cast until you went into the theater.
Well, you could kind of tell when they were in the, which I guess is Louisiana, somewhere in the bayou or something, because you had the cameras filming and there was a bunch of people in white, but I could tell that they were darker of complexion, even though they were far away.
Yeah.
But that was the only scene, and the camera was quite a ways away to show this crowd, so that...
And everybody else that you saw working on it, white.
Factory workers, bored people.
Yep. Not a single cast member shown in that. Because
What color are aardvarks? Those ones look brown.
They're about a little bit grayish.
Are they?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I remember the last time I saw an aardvark.
I mean, they're, if you believe, I guess they're brownish gray. They're grayish brown. I don't know. Arthur the aardvark shouldn't be trusted as a source for what aardvarks look like, so...
Aardvarks are kind of cute.
They are. Arthur lied to us. I would have been fine with an aardvark that looked like an aardvark for Arthur. I guess the books Arthur looked like an aardvark. Anyway, you're getting me on another tangent.
I am Warren, the distractor and detractor.
So, I could talk about the white guys who wrote the movie or the play, but I'm not. Instead, we're going to be talking about Rex Ingram, who we're going to be seeing in both this film and Cabin in the Sky.
Rex Ingram, huh?
Ingram.
So, this is Rex Saddle Ingram? Rex Tech Saddle Ingram? Rex,
I'm not going to let you do this to me. All right, so him being born on October 20th of 1895, 100 years to the date before we met, or 113 years to the date before we met, is cool enough. But looking into this guy, I wish I had known about him, and someone needs to do a biopic about the first part of his life. As I read more, I'm kind of not into a biopic about him, but we'll get into it. So, Rex Ingram earned a Phi Beta Kappa Key at Northwestern University, being the first black man to do so, and earned a medical degree according to most of the sources that I found, including one saying he was a licensed physician. Much like Joseph Bologna, though, his early life is a big shrug. In 1918, however, his life and career would change forever. IMDb attributes the following quote to him. "My career as an actor was quite by chance. I was standing on a Hollywood corner waiting to cross the street when I was discovered by a movie talent scout. I was persuaded that I was just what was needed to play a native in the jungles in the first Tarzan picture."
Hey, you! We need a black!
And you know what? That reminds me of when I was in Ragtime and one of our castmates was found in the grocery store.
They just needed
They
a black
just needed
person.
a black person because
Not even necessarily to dance or sing, just to be there.
Well, to sing and dance, but
Oh.
they didn't even ask at the time. They were just like, you! Can you sing and dance, kind of? Okay. Do you want to be in a play?
Wouldn't that just be incredibly offensive to, like, be grabbed in the middle of the grocery store and someone going, hey, we live in a very white state and we need more black people in this production. I mean, I don't know. At the same time, there's a certain amount of bravery that comes with, like, approaching somebody, and it's not like they were doing it in a malicious sense.
This is the same one where I almost didn't audition because of the casting call. So, and this was when I was really wanting to break into pro theater, and it was very much a wrestling with, do I audition or do I not? And I can't remember who it was who said, no, audition, and that way they know not to say that again. Like, not to ever do a casting call like this again. But, yeah, I can see why he said yes, is my view, I guess. Especially because he's being approached when film is in its infancy. And so it's kind of like a big thing to be approached in Hollywood. And it's sort of the dream that a lot of folks have of getting discovered.
I guess that's true. Yeah. No, you're exactly right. Like, just be standing on a street corner and someone will see me and notice my potential.
Yeah. The thing that sucks is what he got cast for, and that actually leads to some of his later... that leads to, I guess, not later, but some of his choices when he was in his prime. So... he's in these silent Tarzan films in the late 1910s. They're all bit roles. And then he gets cast as slaves and natives in things like The Ten Commandments from 1920 or Salome and the Four Feathers. But he goes on Broadway and he gets cast in Porgy... he first gets cast in Porgy, which was by DuBose Hayward, and then gets cast in the opera adaptation of Porgy and Bess by Ira Gershwin. And we're going to talk a little bit about Gershwin later as well. And so he's in that, and then he's in a touring production of Emperor Jones as the Emperor in 1933, and that was actually his favorite role.
Yeah, he was the emperor.
Yeah, and then he's in the Federal Theater Project's production of Haiti in 1938 as the lead, Christophe, and Haiti was about the Haitian Revolution. And at some point we'll talk about the Federal Theater Project, but that's more encompassing for all of theater history rather than just black theater history, but a lot of big, important black stars and theaters did get their start during this time. While he's doing Broadway and films, he's also a pro boxer.
Dang.
Yeah, he is just working.
He's the American Joseph Bologna.
Yeah, basically, yeah. And then he gets cast in Emperor Jones, the film adaptation, alongside Paul Robeson, who is a legend of stage and film. I may have talked about him a little bit last year.
You know, even if you did, that was last year, and I can't remember what happened last week. So
I'm trying to remember. We'll catch some stuff that he was in too. And then he gets cast in Oscar Michaud's Harlem After Midnight, which, fun fact, Oscar Michaud was the first black man to produce a feature film with his film The Homesteader, which he also wrote and directed. So
nice.
There's some fun film history there that no one ever tells you about. So, in 1936, he has his breakout role as Delord, Adam, and Hesdrel in The Green Pastures. Not so fun fact... Delord was supposed to be played by Al Jolson in blackface.
I'm glad they didn't.
Yeah, that didn't happen, thank God.
Glad they didn't.
And so they went to the aforementioned Paul Robeson, who was like, absolutely not, which will be fun when we cover the show that, and this whole thing will be fun when we cover the show that Green Pastures inspired, Cabin in the Sky, where we get a return of Rex Ingram as Lucius and Lucifer Jr.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So, in this movie, they almost had a white guy in blackface acting with black people.
Mm-hmm.
Was that common? Because from what I understand, okay,
Yeah.
okay. So in my memory of you telling me stuff, it was usually black people were not cast, and so they just had white people in blackface. And so
Eventually we'll. No, I don't ever want to watch it again. Actually, if you want to get your blood pressure up, you can watch Birth of a Nation. There are black actors cast, but the leads are all people in blackface, pretty
Neat.
much. Yeah.
Okay, well, I guess okay then. I was just sitting here thinking
Hollywood has this weird thing where it's like,
it's called racism.
yeah, but like it's a weird type of racism because it's like, oh, we want to have black people as main characters, but God forbid we have a black person play a black person.
Or we
you know what?
Want to.
It's like James Corden in Prom. Well,
Mm.
okay, it's not as bad as James Corden in Prom, or it's worse than James Corden in Prom.
Words.
It's worse than James Corden in Prom because this is just we're not a costume. Anyway. Oh man, my step counter just
your
went
heart
nuts.
Your heart rate just spiked a little bit.
Whew.
So I got you that for Christmas, and I guess it's just going to be a rage tracker.
Yeah, it's a rage tracker. Oh man, it's got me going at. It's about to tell me because it kind of shook at me.
Well, you're
But,
calming down now. But anyway.
Yeah, so when I say that this was kind of a breakout role for him, wow, it's only 67 beats per minute. That's weird. It's time to remember that this is the 1930s through the 60s Hollywood, and he is a black man, meaning that a lot of roles are not offered to him that are like major roles, and he's still doing a lot of minor roles in the 30s. But then he gets sort of like, he gets not so minor roles, but definitely not lead roles, for this part in the 30s. In 1939, he's cast as Jim in The Adventures of Huck Finn, and has a lot of, for lack of a better term, magical Negro roles.
Yeah.
Sometimes literally, in the case of his role as the genie in The Thief of Baghdad, but he also plays a self-sacrificing Sudanese soldier in Sahara, the aforementioned Jim, who teaches Huck not to be a racist, and the wizened outcast Mose in Moonrise, where
he was Jim in...
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And he's the wizened Mose in Moonrise, where he helps the young white hero be better. He is the start of the magical Negro. Well, one of the starts.
It's such a frustrating thing to me that you can have black people in mentor roles, you can have black people in supporting roles where they help the hero achieve their goal, but they're not allowed to be the hero. And it's just so frustrating because it's like you took that step,
Yes.
but you didn't take it one step further.
And he kind of, we'll get into it a little bit, but he kind of gets frustrated too. And
I'll bet.
Yeah, and at one point he does get to be the board of directors for the Studio Actors Guild.
Wow.
But that doesn't mean that he has power to make the substantial change that's needed at this time. But he starts getting more stardom, so he's able to start turning down roles.
Ah, nice.
And so he makes a point to turn down every role that is demeaning because he has influence and he knows that the best way to use his influence is to push towards equality. In fact, he's quoted in the New York Times saying, "I decided 2 years ago to help our cause to the best of my ability. I wouldn't take parts which didn't at least do us justice."
Good
Pretty
work.
awesome.
Yeah, fantastic.
And then in 1948, he gets arrested, pleads guilty to, and goes to prison for transporting a 15-year-old white girl for immoral purposes.
For immoral purposes.
Yep.
Ah.
Yep.
Ah. Oh, man. Oh,
Yeah.
come on, dude.
And I'm gonna quote some of the stuff that just makes me go, oh.
Yeah.
So, after 9 months of his 18-month sentence was served, he was released on parole, and later he wrote an essay for Ebony called I Came Back from the Dead, about his return to his career, and talked about this, saying, my trouble arose from a casual, genuinely warm friendship with a young woman. That friendship was distorted and misunderstood. Because the woman happened to be white, I was persecuted and made target of charges and innuendos. Like anybody else, I made a few mistakes. A couple might be termed major ones. We kind of have to pay for our mistakes in this life, and I certainly have paid for mine. And I couldn't find anything to say
what exactly happened. Whether or not he was an adult male who had a minor that was a friend, or if he was engaged in... Yeah.
And
neither one is good. If you're in a... Because, I mean, I assumed that at this point he was probably in his late 20s, 30s.
He was 40... Let's see,
okay.
1948, he was too old to be hanging with a 15-year-old.
Yeah, too old to have a 15-year-old as a friend.
Yeah.
Not unless it's a situation of he's friends with their parents.
Yeah.
And
it's one of those
friend's
things.
Daughter.
It's one of those things where I'm like, dude, 15 is still 15. That's
exactly.
a baby.
Exactly. I'm like, that's
15 is a baby.
I'm sitting here going, that's not okay now.
No.
Like, if it's not okay now.
And so that was where I was sitting here going, because I saw white woman, and then I saw 15-year-old white woman. I'm just like, Rex. I'm just like, Rex, no.
Oh.
But yeah.
Oh, man.
He's still a brilliant actor, but my view's a little tainted.
You know, that's the thing, too, is because so often people get caught for something, very rarely do they go, you know, especially if it's engaged in inappropriate activities with a minor, very rarely do they actually go, yeah, I did that, and it was wrong, and I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done it. And when he's saying that, oh, it was a friendship that people misconstrued, I'm still like...
Yeah.
I'm still like...
And I'm kind of sitting here like, how did you not... How did you not realize the optics?
That too, the fact that he was sentenced to 18 months and he only served 9, I think is
some star power right there.
It's I guess the argument could be made that he, because of his star power, earned a bit of privilege and was able to get away with something that someone not a star would not have gotten away with.
Because I'm sitting here like, that was a little white. That is the thing that, like, got kids killed at like, not too long after this.
Yeah, whistling at a white woman.
Yes. So my mind is blown. And so you get to go on the journey with me now of how my brain just was like, it was like a record scratch as I'm going through, and then just
you might be wondering how I got here. 15-year-old white girl.
And then he still gets a career.
I mean, he must have been a phenomenal actor and a very charming and suave individual.
Yeah, like that was what blew my mind. Was I was going, okay, and his career's over, and nope, he's the first black man to be cast as a regular in a soap opera now. He was cast in The Brighter Day, which was canceled after a month because, it was it was an early TV soap opera, and soap operas at the time kind of gonna try not to do a history of TV on you. So soap operas started on radio but moved to TV, and they kind of oversaturate the market. And so it starts to whittle down to where by now we have General Hospital, Days of Our Lives, and nope, All My Children ended, All As the World Turns ended. I think we've only got like 2.
Remind me, soap operas are popular because they have a new episode every day.
Every day, and they're basically written in advance, but then they film it that day and then release it that day. Like it's just a there and done. There, it's as close to
live
theater every day, but they turn the mics up all the way so that you hear every single
mouth noise.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I can't watch soap operas because it just makes me angry.
I mean,
and I want to grab a pencil and just jam it in my ear.
I mean, granted, I've never been into soap operas anyway, just because daytime drama TV.
Hissing noises just... No. Anyway, he gets to do all this TV and movies still, but his last role is on the Christmas episode of The Bill Cosby Show. Not The Cosby Show, The Bill Cosby Show, titled A Christmas Ballad. And he films the episode at Cosby's request, even though he's really, really ill at this time.
Oof.
And then he passes on September 19th, 1969, so this episode airs posthumously December 21st, 1969.
Does it say what he died of?
I did not see. I did not look to see. I want to say it was a heart attack.
So natural causes.
Yeah, it was natural causes. He was starting to get up there in years. He had Hollywood lifestyle before that, so I mean, if we ever get into deciding to branch off and do film history ever, we'll talk about Fatty Arbuckle and why he was part of what ruined movies for a very big chunk of time and led to Camelot and Lost Horizon.
So he's who's the
blame.
You
can thank him for the Hays Code. But yeah, that's Rex Ingram, the complicated life history of someone who I just sort of went, oh no, when I got to the 40s.
And that has been the complicated life of Rex Ingram, here on Tone Deaf, hosted by Kay and Warren.
Welcome to Tone Deaf Theatre.
Welcome to Tone Deaf Theatre.
You just got us DCMA'd. Thank you a lot.
No, I didn't do all the parts. Just kidding. I can't do that. I don't have 3 uvulas like Willie the Operatic Whale. Anyway, that being said, shall we go watch Green Pastures and get some Bible learning in us?
Yeah! I want to see heaven and earth represented as places in Louisiana.
And that's gonna tie into when we watch Cabin in the Sky so that you get the idea of what...
I kind of assumed that when they were like, Cabin in the Sky, I was like, oh, because they're saying that places in Louisiana, so that these simple folk have something to identify with.
Yeah, that's why I screamed at the computer the other day.
Kay needs a screaming pillow this episode.
Yep. Anyway, let's go and watch us some The Green Pastures.
Woo!
Let's go.
Kay, do you know what time it is?
What time is it, Warren?
It's time to thank our favorite people in the whole wide world.
Is it time to thank our Patreon sponsors?
It is!
Yay! We would like to thank our stage crew sponsors, Reagan and Jasmine Wu.
And our Producers Circle sponsors, Bianucci and Taylor Brandt.
Thank you all so much for your continued support of our show.
We truly appreciate it.
Hi, I'm Sunny Hepburn.
And I'm Brandy Fleets.
And we're from Book of Lies, the podcast, where we discuss liars, cheats, and thieves,
scammers, and dirty, rotten scoundrels.
You can tune in for new episodes every Tuesday to hear about another lowdown, dirty liar.
And learn how to spot them.
So that's Book of Lies podcast. You can connect with us on social media, Twitter at Book of Lies Pod, Facebook and Instagram at Book of Lies Podcast. Bye!
And now, the lights are going down and the music's starting back up, so let's head back to the second act of our show. So, little heads up, we actually started recording this second half of the episode right after watching the Green Pastures, and then some further discussion made us go, we need to take a little bit deeper of a look. And I tried to do as deep of a look as I could without going down a rabbit hole and still following my own self-appointed rules of not doing too much for myself this year. So there was one thing that I had forgotten to mention when we were initially talking about Green Pastures. So the play itself is not original. It is based on a book of short stories called Ol' Adam and His Chillin' by Rourke Bradford, who is a white guy who kind of did a little bit of a Uncle Remus treatment. And for those who know about Uncle Remus, that is the character that the movie Song of the South is based on. Those books are written by a white guy, and it's I haven't gone into the research recently to know if it's been determined that he wrote all of those and made them all up to make it seem like black people in the South were inferior or not, but yeah, that's kind of where this Rourke Bradford was going with his original Ol' Adam and His Chillin'. And it looks like the Green Pastures was better received by the black community than the material that it was based on, like the book. And I should say Green Pastures, the play, was received better. But it wasn't received 100% like, this is amazing. There was a lot of, oh, no, 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 from them, because it's something that we're still dealing with now, that it's, do we allow representations that are not necessarily as good to exist alongside what we're trying to use to push forward progress? And so really that's kind of where this all fell in. Now, we did talk a little bit about, because the story of Green Pastures on the surface level is, it's on the surface level, it's a bunch of kids at Sunday school imagining the Bible. Of course, they open it up with a disclaimer that makes it, and the trailer that makes it basically go, oh, look at these simple black people.
Yeah, more rude than that, but yes that's what it boils down to.
And then when you look at it under the surface, as soon as you start to think about it more, there are little things that make it seem more like a religious critique. And I couldn't find anything to say that the writer of the play was doing that, because a lot of Green Pastures shows God, as it goes on, more and more flawed. And that's not a portrayal you ever see.
Yeah, well,
the closest that you see is in a show you haven't seen yet called Children of Eden, that's by Stephen Schwartz, which it did Godspell, so
we'll get to it.
Yeah, we'll get to it. That's the closest that I can think of where you see God portrayed in a religious-ish setting being flawed.
And it's and as you and I discussed with this, the biggest reason for that is one of the cornerstones of a religion to generally have any weight behind its rules is that they come from a all-knowing, all-powerful, omnipotent being.
Yeah.
And so if you represent the originator, the prime mover of this religion as flawed, then you start the House of Cards issue, the Jenga tower of, well, what about this? What about this? If God was wrong about this, then what about this? Which you and I, Kay and I, are very, very torn, because given the fact that this show, for the time that it was released, is not as problematic as it could be.
Yeah, it could be so much worse.
That's the thing, is we were talking about, if they just would remove the opening Star Wars scrawl that says, black people in the South are simple.
Yeah.
You could put this show in any location and it would be, and this is where we're also not sure, it would either be unintentionally brilliant or it would be intentionally brilliant.
Yeah.
Because as we were digging about it and poking at it and unraveling it, we were realizing that there is a lot of subversive religious teaching in here. A lot of it that is, at least from our perspective when we were talking about it, that encourages people to take one step beyond what they are taught and then inquire.
And a little bit of a thing for you guys listening, if this is your first episode, Warren was not raised religious at all.
But the cliff notes is that both my parents were raised pretty dang religious, and by the time I was born, they were both having a crisis of faith. My mom felt like that I needed to have some form of God in my life, and so she had always just told me, be a good person because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
So a little bit more of just she kind of always gave me the, God loves you no matter what.
Yeah.
Just be a good person. Be good to other people because you would want them to be good to you. And that worked for me. I kind of got raised without any of the religious guilt. None of the, Jesus died for you kind of thing. And I'm grateful for that.
And other than going to church for, friends' kids' baptisms,
blessings,
baptisms, funerals.
Yeah.
You didn't have as much exposure to church.
No, I did not.
Then there's me.
Then there's you, who was a minister in training at one point.
I was getting ready when I was going through colleges, I was getting ready to go to Pacific Lutheran, or whatever it's called now. I don't know what it's called anymore, because that's how long it's been since
It's a different life, a different K.
My mom wanted me to be exposed to every possible religion because my mom was born Catholic, and my mom and grandparents were like, we're not saddling Kay with this, so let's give you as much experience as you can in everything. And it wasn't until I went to a Lutheran school that I kind of got religion guilted into me. Just to fit in, because I was so good at doing things to just fit in. At least to survive. Not to fit in, to survive.
I mean, when you're one of the 12 black people who live in Utah, you feel a little outnumbered.
Yeah, I was one of 2 in my class, one of 3 in the school.
Yeah.
So it was very. So we're coming from it from 2 very different views of religion and 2 different experiences of religion, and that we both hit the same thing makes me think that it might have been purposeful, but
purposely subversive, but kind of played, because it feels like that it was. That you have this brilliant underline to the entire show, but they have to kind of make it overtly mammy to an extent, because it's like they're trying to, they want to get white people to go see it, and they want to get black people to go see it, so they have to, it seems like they were kind of trying to, on a surface level, on a cosmetic level, make it as appealing to as broad of an audience for the time, which was a very racist time.
Yeah.
But the underlining current of it is quite brilliant, perhaps.
Yeah, like you have some of your archetypes. Though I will say, actually, that you don't have as many of your really racist caricature archetypes in this.
They
which
don't.
Is surprising it for something written by a white person in the 30s.
And see, that's the other thing that we're coming to, is because if for something in the 30s when it was written, they could have run the freaking gamut of all the racist stereotypes, and it would have been considered fine for the times.
Mm-hmm.
It would have been fine to release, and people would have gone and seen it.
Yeah, NAACP would have denounced it, but then white society would have either A, not cared, or B, gone in even bigger droves.
They would have been like, oh, well, if they're saying it's bad, then...
Yeah, because it's that whole backlash from
swing.
Progressive.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's... If it weren't for the time period it's in, I would immediately say this was subversive. They were doing that on purpose and getting people to question. But even in the takedown of the Green Pastures that I saw from a religious studies person, and I started reading it, and then I had to stop myself because I could feel myself getting into that little rabbit hole that I tend to go into, where I don't come out for weeks, and then I've already grown a gray beard. And so I had to stop myself, but I wasn't quite seeing it like that. I wasn't seeing the discussion of the fact that this movie brings up the idea of God is fallible.
I went in until the very end, and I should say after the end of the show, when we then came and sat down and started to talk about it. I was not necessarily a fan of the show, because
same.
I didn't like the way that they portrayed things. I didn't like the way that they were very condescending and down talking to the black people of the show. Just, it had that very, oh, you simple people. And I really didn't like that. But as you and I were talking more and more about it, we started to unravel it and kind of realize that the show might be secretly brilliant, and if you take away just that beginning racist scrawl, it automatically makes the show better.
Yeah.
And Kay and I are both of the mind that this show needs a revival. Like, if you wouldn't really have to change much of anything, because the imagining of what heaven is like is coming from the perspective of a bunch of grade schoolers. And so everything around them is just
what they see.
So, God is in a suit, and the angels are wearing kind of normal attire, other than having wings. Some of them have robes and stuff, but, they talk about having a fish fry and drinking custard, things that did not exist in ancient, well, I mean, technically, the stuff they're talking about is Genesis, so before the creation of the earth. But anyway, I digress. So we very much feel like if you were to take this show, plop it anywhere in America
at any time
period without the racist scroll, it would be a great show.
Like, you could take this, drop it in Utah, change the fish fry to a potluck or a bake sale.
Sure.
Have instead of drinking custard, he's eating green Jell-O with carrot shavings. And, like, the thing that they're having to deal with when God is coming down, instead of seeing he could be seeing gambling and stuff.
It would still fit.
That would still fit. But, like, you can find current day vices, because that was the vices of the time, was gambling, drinking, smoking.
And granted, gambling is illegal in Utah, so it would still fit.
It would still fit.
Smoking is
I went up and got my scratchers in Idaho.
Yeah, exactly. You could still have, gambling, drinking, smoking. That would still fit the narrative of being like, oh, you shouldn't be doing this stuff, you sinful, simple people.
Yeah.
But, so...
It was like watching Little Rascals telling the Bible a little bit, or like imagining the Bible. Well,
imagining.
You didn't watch the old Little Rascals, but
just
that was the
a little
feel
snippets
that I had from watching this, was the old Little Rascals.
Because one of the things they don't tell you, or I feel like they didn't, because I didn't catch it until way later. was that, and we've talked about it, is that the imagining of heaven is from the perspective of the children, because they don't make it all that obvious until later. Because you just think that it might be the pastor, I guess, telling the parishioner, telling
he would be the minister
telling the kids about what heaven is like, and telling kids about Genesis, and they're doing their best to try and imagine it with the reference material they have available to them. And I think that is perfectly fine. The fact that it wasn't, like I said, even as black and white as it is right now, literally, because it's in black and white, if you just take out that racist scroll in the beginning, it automatically changes the entire tone of the show.
Yes.
You don't have to open up your show going, these people are dumb.
Yeah.
That is not necessary.
Yeah.
Unless you're telling a story that is purposely about fools or something.
Yeah.
But it's just, it existed entirely to degrade the heroes, the subject, the people telling the story.
Yeah.
That's the only reason it exists, because if this was being told in a southern state, but it was an all-white cast, they wouldn't have that opening scroll.
No. Oh, God,
that would not exist. And so it's only there to be racist.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest issue. Like, it just needs... Yeah, like
I
said...
That needs to be yeeted.
Take that show, put it anywhere else, even you put it in the exact same town, but modern day, without the opening scroll... completely different show, completely different tone, everything. And after Kay and I have had a chance to talk about it and kind of sit with it, I kind of like the show.
Yeah.
It has some clever things to it.
And I just had this realization too. The only reason that we started thinking about that was because we were starting to dissect the plot to each other.
Yeah. We were talking about
because it was the literal thunderclap moment was a scene with Noah that made me go, oh my gosh, this whole thing.
Yeah, because as we talked about, God is portrayed as just another person.
Yeah.
Like, the way that the angels react to him, it's obvious that he's the boss. They listen to what he says, they do what they're told, but he seems... more or less intellectually on a similar level.
Yeah.
Because he'll ask them, like in the same thing, like there's a part in heaven where he brings some souls that have come up,
Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob.
Yeah, he brings them up and asks them questions, and this is supposed to be God, the omnipotent, the
all-knowing,
the omnipresent, like this is supposed to be the creator. So the fact that you have this creator figure asking beings that he has created, essentially lesser beings, their opinion, and getting ideas from these lesser beings, and having a powerful realization that changes the very nature of what he as God is by the end of it, is quite earth-shattering. And that's one of the things, as Kay and I talking about, the fact that the show was so popular on Broadway for 18 months, then it had a 5-year tour around the country. You have to kind of ask yourself, now, were people going to see the desecration of black people in it, or were they going because they were having a philosophical, religious experience?
Yeah.
It's hard to tell because there is not enough information on it documented from that time. And at the same time, it was a different time, and it wasn't necessarily as considered as...
it wasn't Birth of a Nation.
Well, it also probably wasn't a time that was considered as okay to have philosophical quandaries about religion. It was very much like, if you don't accept it, then you're a heathen or a blasphemer.
Not in movies, at least. On stage, different ball ground, because they didn't have the Hays Code. But movies, for sure, it was like, oh, you can't say this, this, or this about religion. Oh, you can't say this, this, or this about race. You can't say this, this, or this about politics. So it's why I'm sitting here going, did they intend that? Because... if so, if it hadn't have been for us talking about it, I would have written this off.
I would have too. I really would have too. And I kind of was prepared to, but, like we're saying, we're talking about it, and then you had some good bits where you were pointing out stuff that I had kind of missed because I was taking notes, which also made me have a complete reevaluation of everything that I had watched.
Yeah.
So with that being said, you think we should talk about it now?
I think we should talk about the Green Pastures.
The Green Pastures. Now, mourn together, children. Mourn and never tire of old good family racism. Certainly, Lord. Which I do. It's funny, we had subtitles, and I did laugh how nobody calls God Lord. It's all Laud. Like Laud. Lawd. So it's got that southern, what's it called?
It's got the dialect that they would have used, and
I thought there was another term I was looking for, but dialect.
Yeah, and what's interesting about it too is that that's probably how it's written in the script. Because how I showed you from last year, the way that I would have to read like William Wells Brown's script, how it was just in the dialects. So every character had their dialect
written. You did a fantastic job with. I would have stumbled over my tongue way more than you did.
Practice, my dear. It's practice.
You are also the thespian.
Decades of acting.
Kay is an actor.
So, the patronizing intro scrawl is basically black people are simple, so they imagine heaven as things that they see on earth because they lack imagination. Neat. An older man is ringing a church bell while his grandson is like, why is it called a watch? He's holding his grandpa's pocket watch. Which, fair question, little man. I don't know why we call watches watches. We don't watch them. We look at them and then put them back away. But then Kay was like, well, a watch has face.
Yep,
has
a
face.
watch has a face.
So
that's why it's a watch.
Yeah, which then made me go, well, that note doesn't work then.
It still works. But it's just me pulling something out of thin air.
No, there you go. But Grandpa Bellringer tells the grandson they're called watches because they watch. Because they have faces, as Kay has said. Anyways, the power of the church bell draws all the children from around the entire town for Sunday school, and Mr. Deshay is eating dinner with a family that he's visiting, but the call of the church bell pries him away from the dinner table, and he grabs the son. I thought it was his grandson at first, but it's just the boy of the family that he's dining with, and to take him to church for Sunday school. On the way, Mr. Deshay collects all the children along the road and takes them to church, where he tells them about the book of Genesis and stuff, and how people live to be old, real old, like 900 years old. And the kids start asking questions like, what did the world look like in the beginning, and if Louisiana was around then? But Mr. Deshay says the whole world was just a mess of bad weather.
On their way to the church, because eventually the preacher's joined by all the kids, and they pass a circus poster, and one of the little boys is holding an ABC book, and he's just, I don't see this one on the poster. Do you think...
Oh, because we're looking at animals.
Minister, do they have aardvarks in the circus? And it was just so cute, and all those kids were cute. And it comes back later.
I was
with
about
the
to say that,
aardvarks.
though, but like all the kids that they cast in this are really dang cute, especially the ones who have the majority of speaking lines and camera time. Really cute little kids.
It's like they put out a call going, we need the cutest children. We need the kids that you just want to pinch their little cheeks. And
my thought was is that we're going to be showing this to racist white people, so we got to get really cute little kids. So that's
it's the same as the Into the Spider-Verse thing, where it was, let's make Miles Morales look like Bambi.
Big
so
eyes.
That everybody humanizes him and goes, this is a child. I feel for this child.
The kids ask other questions of Mr. Deshay, and he says that another person told him that the Bible doesn't have time to give all the details to all these questions. A convenient excuse for Mr. Deshay, who then goes on to just tell the kids that heaven is like angels just chilling around, and they have fish fries every week, maybe every day. Lots of fishing anyways, and lots of cooking and plenty of good food for all. Which I'm like, hey, I'm down with that. If heaven is just chilling and eating good food, man, I'm all right for that.
And it's very similar to how you would approach this with a Sunday school class, regardless, that you try to make it something that children can relate to.
Something that they enjoy, that they can relate to, because that's the idea of heaven as paradise, is that it's just wall-to-wall good times, and that's why you gotta be a good person and follow God's rules, so you can get into heaven where it's just a good time all the time.
Yep, it's not until you hit your theology classes where it's like, actually, with heaven, you're in God's presence all the time, and you're just worshiping God all the time. What about the unlimited French fries you were telling me about? You get to worship God all the time. You don't care about French fries. I do, though.
God is such a diva.
But it was so cute because it just reminded me of when I got to teach Sunday school class and how cute those little kids were, and how my one co-teacher had been telling the story of Jesus walking on the water, and she brings the question up to all the little kids, and who walked on the water to Jesus? And one of the kids, Peter Pan! That's right! It, just glossed over.
And what makes me laugh about that, too, is I think that in the Disney cartoon Peter Pan, there is a scene where he walks on water because he can fly. So
That's right.
And I wonder if the
kid probably got his Peters crossed.
Now come on, children. Don't be weary. We're in heaven now. And angels are fishing on clouds, and some angels are smoking 10-cent cigars.
One angel baby nearly chokes to death on a catfish bone.
The scene where she's shaking this angel upside down, like, you let go of that catfish bone.
And I know it's supposed to be funny, but I'm sitting here going,
no. I was like, is there choking to death in heaven? I was like, seems like an oversight. I need to file a report with God. But anyway, they're smoking 10-cent cigars with other angels while they groom each other, like on their wings. Apparently, angels in heaven are pretty much just like people.
Do angels have orophageal glands?
What's that again?
It's the gland right up above a bird's butt where they get oil and then rub it through their feathers.
I mean, we don't ever see that in this. We just see them brushing the wings.
Because if you have feathers, you have to have an orophageal gland.
But for all we know, the camera cuts away as the brush goes back to get more oil. So you'd have to...
Or there's special angel wing oils because they've got hands and they don't need to worry about...
They just ask God for more firmament so that they can clean their wings.
Yes. Then again, we all know that angels don't look like this. They're...
Yes.
Balls of fire and multiple eyes.
You and I were talking about that, how funny that would be in a revival that they show. Is it Genesis or is it Book of Enoch that they talk about what angels look like?
Ezekiel talks about angels. Revelations talks about angels.
But how they're monstrosities, basically.
This one has 4 faces. One's a lion.
This one has 6 wings. This one's made of eyes. This one's on fire. It would be hard to explain to a bunch of elementary school kids that the angels that are looking out for you and protecting you are these horrible monstrosities.
As soon as I found out that cherubim have 4 faces and one's a lion, one's an ox, one's an eagle, and one's a man, I was like, dude, that's way cooler. Sign me up for that.
Sistine Chapel would look a lot different.
Sistine Chapel would look so good, and now I need to draw it.
Oh, but yes, angels in heaven are apparently just like people. You've got kids disobeying and getting threatened with violence. You have kids eating food and getting belly aches. Other angels complaining that their disobedient children must have imp blood in them because they're so vexing.
That's such a great line.
Some angels talk about Satan and how he's just a troublemaker up in heaven and how he isn't around anymore, and they wonder what happened to him. Gabriel shows up to be like, hey! God's coming! And everybody is like, oh, get ready for God. And God comes out to be like, is everyone being good? Is everyone baptized? Is everyone saved? good, good. And then God takes an offered drink and cigar. But then God is like, there's something wrong with this custard drink. It doesn't have enough firmament. And then the angel custard cook is like, we don't have enough firmament, God. And then God is like, I'm God. I'll make a miracle. I'll make more firmament. The firmament turns out to be too much, and all the angels get soggy. And God is like, me, dang it. That's the problem with miracles. You always have to make more miracles to counteract the other miracles. It's like dominoes toppling over one another.
100 million miracles. Dum, bada, 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 bum, bum.
That's a throwback. And then God decides to make the world, with all the mountains and streams and rivers and fields and the sun while he's at it.
Yeah.
Whimper girl.
Yeah.
And all the angels are like, oh, that looks nice, God. And God is all, I made a garden too, and I don't want it to go to waste. So I'm going to go down there and make somebody to enjoy my garden. God then tells Gabriel that he's the man of the house while he's gone, and that he better make sure heaven runs smoothly, like always. The angels sing to God as he leaves heaven, and God sets out to make man on earth, so someone can appreciate his garden and follow all his rules, like not eating fruit from special trees. Anyways, so God leaves heaven, and then immediately we just see Adam waking up and being like, huh, I exist now. And God is all, what is your name? And Adam announces that he is him. And God is like, neat, but you need a family. And then he tells Adam to close his eyes, and bam! He manifests Eve right next to Adam. And he tells them to take care of each other, because he's not sure if this new experiment called humanity will survive. So for the time being, just drink some water from the streams, eat some food from the trees, and just chill. Except don't eat food from this one specific tree. Don't do it. And then Adam and Eve look directly into the camera and are like, yes, Lord. And then God bails, saying that he has 100,000 things to do before they take their next breath.
I love the trick photography in that, with Rex acting to himself as God and Adam.
Yes.
And I love the way that they do that, and especially looking back on the movie with new eyes. I'm sort of like, oh, this is brilliant to have God and Adam be the same person.
Well, especially because he has the line, I will make a new creation in my own image.
Yeah. And that is the line from the Bible, is that God will make Adam in his own image, but to actually do that,
it was a nice touch for
really
the show.
Cool.
And it's funny because I didn't catch that right away, because God has this big old beard, and because I have the object permanence of a 2-year-old, I was like, oh, well, he doesn't have a beard, so he's an entirely different person.
And also the memory of me saying that Rex plays God and Adam and Esdrel.
Yeah, that part may have, I think that part may have escaped me once I started watching the show and going, man, there's a lot of racism in here. But back at Sunday school, Mr. Deshay is asking if the kids know what happens next after Adam and Eve are created. And then the scene cuts right to Cain killing Abel. And God telling Cain that he's committed the first crime and that he has to leave and go start a family. Because nothing makes a man forget his troubles like starting a family. Which, as Kay can... Anyway, I guess anybody who's read that part of the Bible or know about it, God's not happy. And
God is very not happy.
And he curses Cain, and
it's like, it's almost like, it feels almost like the minister was getting a little excited telling the kids about Cain and Abel, and then realized he needed to hit the brakes really fast, because he was going to get to a part of the Bible that, there are parts of the Bible that get very difficult to cover with Sunday school children without opening up even more questions.
I mean, as we know, the God of the Old Testament isn't a very nice God. He's very, very wrathful.
Yeah.
He does a lot of genocide.
Yeah, and they do talk, oh my God. God has the biggest body count out of any character we have covered in Tone Deaf.
This is true.
God in this version has the biggest body count.
You are 100% correct.
Because even before that, like, when we cover the Ark and Children of Eden, those body counts are also covered in this. Ark and Children of Eden don't go into the rest of the body counts of God. And with this, it was kind of funny because they sort of gloss over the eating the apple.
Yeah, they don't talk about it at all.
Yeah.
They don't show Adam and Eve getting kicked out of the garden or anything.
Which is kind of...
It's, you know...
it's interesting, because...
You know, it is okay. Like,
yeah.
Even though they're talking about the Old Testament God who is the wrathful God, they do leave out a lot of God's wrath to an extent. And it, you know, granted it is telling it to children.
Yeah.
So, you know, it makes it a lot more... overall than what the Bible actually is.
And a lot of God's wrath is played for laughs.
A little bit, except the part where people die, but yeah.
But like, you know, when they're, oh, he's just throwing thunderbolts down. Not
mad at humans, and so he's like Zeus from on Olympus, just hurling thunderbolts, just like, oh, I made you a nice garden, and then you ate fruit that I told you not to.
Then you started killing. But yeah, it's played for laughs how wrathful God is. But yeah, looking back on it, it's more clever than I originally thought.
It is more clever than we did think initially. Then the scene changes to God and Gabriel attending to some business in heaven. Angels with wings that are molting and the like. Gabriel starts polishing his horn right next to God. But God tells him to stop playing with his horn. And Gabriel gets ready to blow into his horn. And God is like, no. And Gabriel's like, I just wanted to make sure I remembered how to do this. And
I totally wasn't going to start a war with earth and heaven and hell.
Which I don't know. Like, they mention Satan and that he's causing trouble, but it doesn't sound like they talk about the war in heaven or Satan being cast out yet.
No.
They reference Satan later, too.
Yeah. It's because it's definitely not mentioned in Genesis. I want to say that it's a touched on thing in non-Christian parts of the Abrahamic religions, but Christianity has this weird focus on it.
Well, because Satan's the boogeyman.
Yeah.
So Satan is the tempter. So that's the whole thing, is you're supposed to be following God and not Satan.
Yeah.
And so if you're doing sins and bad stuff, then you're being led by Satan.
And I feel that Christianity kind of focuses on that more than Islam or Judaism. Granted, I am not proficient in either of those religions, in the studies of them at least, or practices, or like, I have a very minimal exposure compared to Christianity, but Christianity is obsessed with the war in heaven and then the war after.
Yeah.
But that's where Gabriel with his horn is he's getting his horn ready for...
He wants to play with his toy.
He wants to play with his toy.
God gave him a horn, and he's like, well, I want to play my horn.
Yeah. I love that, though, where he's just, no, I'm just seeing if it worked.
He's making sure it works, God. Oh, and then my favorite thing, one of the heaven business that they're talking about, is that the moon.
Yes!
The moon is getting too hot and is melting because it's made of cheese. You want to know why the moon is getting too hot, listeners? Because angels are partying on the moon. They go to the moon on Saturday, and they party so hard, and it makes the moon hot because they're all flapping their wings and having a good old time. Mm-hmm. And so God decrees that dancing on the moon is a sin, and to stop.
Dancing is not a crime, even till the end of...
Footloose?
Yeah.
No angels on the moon. That's a deep cut.
That's a very deep cut.
God then decides to check up on his science experiment. Humans, The last time he left them, he wasn't too thrilled with how they were behaving. I think we're approaching when God decided to drown the planet to teach them a lesson. God is strolling around on Earth and is like, quiet. I like quiet on a Sunday. And then a woman is singing and playing on her ukulele, and God is like, I don't like that at all. And he goes over to tell her to stop playing and having fun. Sunday is for resting only, not having any fun. God asks what family this woman is from, and Ziba, did I say that right? Ziba?
Yes,
it is Ziba. Ziba tells God that she is the great-great-granddaughter of Seth. And God is like, Seth was a good man. How are you, his granddaughter? And then Ziba is just kind of like, she's being insulting to God, and then she goes back to playing her ukulele, like, I don't have to listen to you, I'm gonna do what I want to do. And then Ziba's boyfriend shows up, and he's apologizing. Now that I think about it, I think that he's supposed to be portrayed as being drunk when he shows up.
Yeah.
Because he has kind of like this wobble to his walk, and then he just kind of falls down on the ground next to her.
He's drunk and has been gallivanting with women.
Yes, exactly. He basically tells Ziba that he apologizes for being late because he was doing inappropriate things with other people. God is like, what is your name? And the man is like, I'm Cain the Sixth. And then God is like, that's what I was afraid of. God has this attitude of like, I should have killed Cain before he had a chance to have a family and make more of these, like I told him to do. And then Cain the Sixth plops down on Ziba's lap and rests his head. And then he pulls out a gun from his pocket to be like, ha! I can kill anyone that flirts with my Ziba. And Ziba's like, I am only for you. Which is not true. We see that later. God walks away very disappointed with these two humans, and soon to be more disappointed with the whole as he comes around some other humans praying to God. But they're praying for all the wrong reasons. They're praying to God to grant them luck in their gambling. And these folks are shooting dice, drinking alcohol, and smoking 10-cent cigars, I assume. 10 cent, because that's the running theme.
Yep.
And God is displeased with the gamblers and drinkers. And one of the gamblers calls God liver lips and tells him to go away. God is very displeased. But then he runs into Noah, who is all...
There was one thing in between. It was either in between Ziba and the gamblers or the gamblers and Noah, where he walks past a patch of flowers, and I thought it was cute.
It's after the gamblers.
Yeah, and he's just like, good morning, flowers. Good morning, God! Yeah, and thankfully, they did not superimpose child faces on the flowers. Thank you for that, movie.
Yeah, it was much cuter just the flowers to talk to God.
Yeah.
And all have little children voices.
Yeah.
That was really cute.
That was.
But God is walking and he runs into Noah.
Uh-oh.
So God runs into Noah. And Noah is like, yeah, people are lazy and they're sinning all the time. Noah invites undercover God to come to his house for dinner. Noah offers God a cigar and asks him what's wrong with the people in the world. God offers Noah a cigar and asks him what's wrong with these people in the world. Noah is like, the men are bad, but the women, the women are worse.
I'm so sorry. I just love Undercover God.
I do too. I feel like that could be a funny show.
Undercover God, like...
like Undercover Boss.
Noah told me that it hasn't rained in months and that he's been having a hard time getting his food, and I had no idea that this was a problem. I had no idea that Noah needed to eat.
Exactly.
Do all my other employees need to eat? Oh my goodness, they all do. Oh my me! Oh my me, they all have to eat. What have I done? This week on Undercover God.
Oh, that could be really funny.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so Noah invites Undercover God to come to his house for dinner. When they show up, God offers Noah a cigar and asks him what's wrong with these people in the world. Noah is like, the men are bad, but the women are worse. Only God knows what he's gonna do with them. And then, ow, cries Noah, my old bum knee is acting up. It might be a sign of rain. And then God is like, spoilers, Noah. And then he reveals himself to Noah and tells him that he wants Noah to build a boat and gather 2 of every animal and put his family on it, because there might be a storm a-coming.
And this was the part that in talking about it again, I went, wait a minute. God doesn't have the idea to flood the earth right away.
Yeah, God is not super brilliant in this. God doesn't have all the answers.
Noah says, "Oh, a storm might be coming," and then you hear a little bit of
knee.
Yeah, the pain in his knee, and you hear a little rumble, and God goes, "Yeah,
Like,
a storm is coming." And so it's one of those, like, God gets his ideas from his creation.
So does that make Noah an accomplice to mass genocide?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
I
Even
didn't flood the
even if he was
world.
an unwitting
I didn't flood the world. I
accomplice.
just gave God the idea to flood the world.
Yeah.
Noah then asks God about booze. Can he take any booze on board the ship? God is like, you can have a keg of liquor. And then Noah's like, how about 2 kegs of liquor? We can put them on either side of the ship and use it to balance it. And God is like, 1 keg of liquor, Noah. You'll put it in the middle of the ship.
Yes, God.
Yep, it's exactly right. He goes, yes, Lord. Cut to Noah, who's now working on the ark while being ridiculed by all the other humans, who tell Noah that he's crazy. And one of them has a line of like, when I was a kid building boats, we did it by the water. You're going to have the water come to you, Noah.
He's just like, that's exactly what's going to happen.
It's exactly what's going to happen. Like, I'll have the last laugh. Noah is like, well, I'll have the last laugh, because you all will be dead soon. Because you'll all be dead people heckling. We see Cain the Sixth, who brings his friends to mock Noah, but then he sees Zebah, who's hanging around with Flatfoot, which displeases Cain the Sixth, who then stabs Flatfoot for hanging out with his woman. People are stunned for a moment, but then they laugh at the dead man because they're all sinners.
Yep, and what was another good touch is Noah's, cataloging which animals are coming in, and they're talking about, oh, well, we need the aardvarks, we need, I can't remember what the animal was that they couldn't easily get. And so Noah's like, well, the circus was in town, so they should still have some. And that's a nice little callback to what the kids...
But they were seeing the circus
when
poster.
they saw the circus poster.
Or billboard, I guess.
And the aardvarks are actually shown being brought onto the boat. And the bees.
The bees! They're in my eyes! People continue mocking Noah for building a boat away from the water, and that he should pray for rain. Noah is like, that's what I'm not praying for, sinner! And then it starts to rain, and Noah rushes to get all of the animals on board the ark as it starts raining cats and dogs. And everybody's like fleeing because they're like, oh, it's really coming down! And Noah's like, ah, crap, move! Get that alligator out there! Get those hippos! Zebras! Move it!
Couple of people in gorilla costumes
That was
pulling
funny.
carts.
That was a nice touch. Then the angels start singing, moving, Lord. I'm sure that's the completely wrong tune because I'm musically challenged, but
it's okay.
All while everyone in the world drowns and dies.
They don't show it on camera because they learned their lesson from the last Noah's Ark movie.
They don't show all the people dying. Oh wait, you're saying that because people actually died on set in that Noah's Ark movie.
Mm-hmm. That's where they learned you don't flood the set. That was before actors were people.
Yeah.
Or I guess I should say before extras were people.
Then why are they still called extras? They're like red shirts.
For a time, they were the extra people.
The storm is over, okay? And the waters recede and we see a rainbow. And then God shows up to be like, I like the planet now that all those sinners are dead. God then tells Noah to plant all of the seeds that they have and replant all of the world.
Yeah. Good luck.
Which, like, you imagine being Noah. It's like, even if you live to be as old as Noah, like walking the earth to try and plant everything.
Yeah.
A child asks if God was happy then, and Mr. Touche is like, nope. God left for a while, but then he looked down one day and was very, very angry at what humans were doing. But then we see some maid angels gossiping around in God's office.
I love this scene.
God is mad at Earth and the humans on it. Down on Earth, they've been making the devil their king, and they're working 3 shifts for him. God is stumped as to what to do. Gabriel suggests that God flood the planet again. God then tells Gabriel to round up some angels, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And then he tells Gabriel to tell Satan to stop acting up. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob come into God's office, and God asks them, what's the best piece of land on earth? And who should be in charge of all the humans on Earth? Abraham offers up his great-great-great-great-great-grandson to lead humans. However, he's in Egypt at the moment, and he's in a little bit of trouble with the law on account of their people are enslaved and all.
And he, kinda did a murder.
Kinda did a murder. He's kind of following in Cain's footsteps at the moment.
I mean, it was a justified murder, but he still kinda did a murder.
God is like, yeah, I know that the Hebrews are slaves. I put them there. But don't worry, I'll take them out of slavery, and we'll make Moses do the stuff. Meanwhile, Moses is doing some sheep herding when God speaks to Moses as the burning bush. After Moses believes that he is God, God then appears and is like, haha, it was just a trick. In fact, I'm going to teach you how to do tricks. Moses asks if he's supposed to join the circus, and God is like, nope, you're just going down to Egypt to tell King Pharaoh to let all the people go, and then you're going to lead them to the land of Canaan. Moses asks if he can bring his brother with him, and God is like, sure, and poof, God brings over Aaron.
And I love that Aaron's in the background this whole time, and then just suddenly, whoop!
Yep. They did some cool 1930s camera tricks, for that. And poof, God brings Aaron over. God then tells them to watch his neat stick trick. And we all know what the stick trick is. We'll talk about it later. What? I think it's a pretty neat stick trick. Well, you've never heard me talk about it before. The scene changes to King Pharaoh's chambers in Egypt.
Sneaky beans all over again.
You kids want to see a stick trick? Meanwhile, in King Pharaoh's chambers, he's asking his personal magician how the killing of all the Hebrew babies is going. And the magician is like, pretty good. We killed about 1,000 last night. And then Pharaoh tells him to leave and to go cut off some brickmakers' hands if they're not able to make bricks without straw. I guess there's a straw shortage? Or he's just being a jerk?
He's being a jerk and getting rid of straw. Like, not giving them straw and then like, oh, if you're...
You know, Pharaoh is like the progenitor of the American baking shows when they're like, you have to make something, but you can't use salt or flour or a knife.
Welcome to Cutthroat Pharaoh.
Literally, he'll cut your throat. As the magician is leaving, he's like, oh, and these two country boys are here to see you, Pharaoh. Moses shows his snake trick to the Pharaoh, and he's like, whoa!
His stick trick.
Yeah, stick trick. His stick trick, where the stick trick is that the stick turns into a snake, and then back into a stick. And the Pharaoh is like, whoa, are you Hebrews? What are you? And then he's like, yeah, are you Hebrews? And he's like, yes, we are Hebrews. And he's like, kill the Hebrews! And then the guards try to kill Moses and Aaron, but they can't, because God magic. What was it? Aaron swinging a stick around?
Yeah.
And it's like making a barrier that they can't kill them. And Aaron, And then so the Pharaoh calls his magician to do a magic showdown. But Moses blocks the magician's spell with a god counter spell. Pharaoh is like, wow, that's a pretty good trick. Since you entertained me with your trick, I'll do you a favor. What do you want from me, Pharaoh, king of all Egypt? Anything, and I'll grant it. And then Moses is like, free all the Hebrews. And Pharaoh is like, no! They're my slaves, and I hate them. And if I free them, then I won't have any of them to kill or maim just for the lulz. And then Moses is like, well, if you don't let them go, I'll do my big trick. And you won't like it, because once I do it, it can't be undone. And Pharaoh was like, nah, I'm God here, and I can do tricks. And then Moses tells Aaron to raise the rod. And Aaron does so, and thunder and lightning comes, and all the firstborn sons fall down dead, including Pharaoh's son. Pharaoh is then sad, and he's like, fine, take the Hebrews and go.
Skipping 9 stages, but...
Also, they skip the part where Pharaoh comes after them. Because we don't ever see the parting of the Red Sea.
Yeah, because that special effect hadn't been mastered yet, for this at least.
True. Moses does just that, and as we see all the Hebrews on the Exodus out of Egypt, and singing as they march, turns out they've been marching for 40 years, and Moses is a wee bit tired. He needs a nap. But then Joshua comes in to be like, "We're here! The city of Jericho is across the river Jordan! We're here! But the city has walls, and we don't have enough people to take it by force!" Moses tells Joshua to take the ram's horn and have all the fighting men walk around the city, and the Lord will take care of the rest. Moses tells Aaron to take care of the Ark of the Covenant, and Moses just sits on this rock as every Hebrew walks by and touches him on the shoulder as they leave. Moses, just chilling on the rock when God shows up, and leads Moses away to his own promised land that's way nicer than Canaan. He even tells him, "I'm going to take you to a place much nicer than Canaan."
Yep.
But as they're walking, Moses is like, But Lord, I told the fighting men to walk around Jericho and that you would help them, but you're here helping me. You're God, but how can you be in two places at once, doing two different things?" And God is like, Lol, I'm God. I'm God, I can do both. Listen. And Moses hears as the walls of Jericho break and crumble down. God continues leading Moses away on top of a mountain to never be seen again. Back in the real world, Mr. Deshay is telling the kids that those kids on Earth got in trouble again, and this time in a place called Babylon, where they're doing bad stuff. The people are engaged in debauchery, especially the king, who orders women to dance for him, and he says, "Please the king." The party is brought down as a prophet of the Lord comes in to tell people that they're being naughty, and that they need to repent, otherwise God will punish them. And bam! The prophet is shot dead and killed by order of the king. And God speaks to the people and says, "You people keep being naughty. Stop being naughty. I'm tired of you being naughty. I keep trying to help you and to teach you, but then you keep being naughty. I'm going to give you a big spanking. A spanking so big you'll die." I actually kind of like that scene because they're in like this, what kind of looks like a dining room area. It's kind of
little
classy.
bit like a club.
Yeah, like a club. That's a good way of putting it. People are in fancy clothing and stuff and carrying on and having a good time and stuff. And the king of Babylon has got gold chains on him and a crown, you know, but when God shows up, the way that they portray it in this, because you don't see God, it's like he's yelling at them from heaven, because they all turn and they just look up.
Yeah.
And they cut the lights in the scene, but then they shine a spotlight on everybody, so it's dark behind them, but in front of them is all illuminated, and they all have just this horror look on their face, like, "Oh no!" As God is telling them that they're all in very big trouble.
And that he's done with them. He doesn't want to talk to him. He doesn't want to hear anything from him.
He's done with humans, period.
Yeah.
And then back in heaven, God is moping around in his office when the delegation of heaven Hebrews come in to ask God to go back to earth and be God once again of the Hebrews. And God is like, "You've been asking me to do this every day for hundreds of years, and I'm still saying no. I've washed my hands of the Hebrew people and all the peoples of earth." God then stomps around his office, being all mopey, until he hears the pleas of Hezrel. Did I say that right?
Yes.
Hezrel.
And this is one of my favorite scenes in the movie.
This is where, because we're reaching the end, and this is where there is a turn. There is a turn in the way things are presented.
Yeah, and it's beautiful, and Rex Ingram's acting is amazing.
It is pretty good. So God hears the pleas of Hezrel, and it's interesting the way he says, because the way that God talks, he says, I hear something. It's not quite prayers, but I can't stop listening," kind of thing. And so he's like listening against his will. He doesn't want to, but he's drawn to this Hezrel fellow.
Yeah.
And Hezrel, who is defending Jerusalem, God is like, "He's talking in a way that I have to listen, but he's not quite praying. But I'm not going to help you, Hezrel." Hezrel is like, "Oh, well, even if King Harold comes to capture
Herod.
I swear they call him Harold. I swear they call him Harold. We're going to have to pull that thing back up and...
Yeah, this is the King Herod that takes Jerusalem and... I want to say he's the first of the King Herods.
And I thought, because that was the thing too, when they said Harold, I was like, or when they said Herod, I was like, did they...
It was an accent thing.
Okay, I swear I heard Harold, and then I was like, do they mean Herod?
Yeah,
I was like,
it was Herod.
I don't know, is Harold a biblical name? I'll go with the movie.
Yeah, no, it's that Herod.
Gotcha. So, even if King Herod comes and captures Jerusalem and kills all of us, we'll just be welcomed by God when we die. And God is having a crisis in heaven because he's like, I don't want to help you, but I'm upset for some reason, so I'll come down to Earth to make myself feel better.
Yep.
God shows up and sees Hezrel, who looks just like Adam, and God gets some nostalgia for his first human. Hezrel is all, are you a preacher? And God is like, sure, I've come a long way to ask you, why do you keep fighting? What do you believe in? And Hezrel is all, we have this new God, a God of mercy, who we learned through suffering. Because old God was upset because he lived with man for so long, all he saw was man's sins, and that's what made him wrathful. But he's a kind, merciful God now, and God is like, huh, thanks, Hezrel. You taught me something.
Oh, I get chills with that scene.
It is an interesting scene because when he's like, well, what God do you worship? He's like, well, we worship God. You know, we have this God of mercy and stuff. And he's just like, but there's only one God, and I'm wrathful. And stuff. He's like, well, this new... And I did like that way that they put it, that the old God was wrathful because he spent so much time with humans, all he was able to see was their sins.
Yes.
And I was like, that's an interesting perspective.
Yes. It's a very good view in my eyes, and a good way of showing that shift,
especially for the 1930s.
Yeah,
that's what makes it
why
so
I was
different.
Like, yeah, that's why I'm so confused by it.
Yeah. And meanwhile, King Herod comes to claim the city, and all the men with Hezrel rush off to die in battle defending the city. And then the scene goes back to heaven, where all the angels are singing around God, who is pouting in his thinking chair. Gabriel offers God a cigar, but God says no. He's not upset, he's just thinking. God's been thinking about what Hezrel said to him, and God has a crisis of faith, I think? God decides that God has to suffer in order to learn mercy. Meanwhile, the angels are watching a crucifixion happening on Earth.
Yep.
And they're like, wow, that sucks. That's a really big bummer. That's a rough thing to have to go through. And God is like, that's what I'll do. I'll crucify myself to learn mercy.
And he even starts to slowly go into the pose.
He puts his hands out, like, as he realizes, and his arms kind of spread, and it's not quite the full crucifix pose.
Yeah.
His arms are down, bent, but his palms are kind of facing up.
Yeah, it's a powerful... Because then it shifts it from, instead of it being like God came down to save us, it's God coming down to understand his creation.
The other thing, too, is you could almost say that God was saved by his creations.
Yes. And
it's another way to look at it.
That is... I really like that.
It's...
Because, like you, I do have hang-ups about the whole sacrifice part. Having it instead being that God was trying to understand his creation and got this idea of, oh, I have to suffer to understand what they're going through and to
then be merciful.
Be merciful to them.
Be merciful and understanding because I have gone through suffering, so therefore I understand.
Yeah.
It is definitely a really interesting way to approach that dynamic.
And it's not something I would have expected from a Hollywood movie in the 30s.
Especially with that opening scroll where they're like, look at these dumb black people.
Yeah.
Like, it's
like, huh. And yeah. I'm sitting here like, is part of that on the actor? Is part of that on
the writing?
Yeah. What did this, and why is this not... I mean, I know why this isn't the thing that's the most talked about, because as soon as you have that opening scroll, depending on where your mind is, you either write off the movie completely, or it's like, oh, look at this cute, charming way of presenting the Bible, and you don't think anything of it after that.
You don't take it one step further and then circle back around and start questioning your own views. Like,
yes.
Like, if I apply this new understanding to my own views, do my views take on a new light?
Yes.
It doesn't do that. And the same kind of, exactly what you're talking about. Either you kind of write it off, or you just go, anything that bounces against your pre-existing filter, you just kind of write off and go, oh, it's these silly black Southern people, kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's these simple folk, like,
which I will tell you, that is one thing that pisses me off a lot.
Absolutely.
I can say pisses off in this.
I agree, because it makes me angry as well.
The whole low information Southern. I'm like,
absolutely, because it's the same kind of thing. It's like,
respect them.
It's the same thing. It's like, let's approach it from your racist viewpoint. Why are they low information? Maybe it's perhaps you won't let them into your schools.
Yeah, well,
you won't let them have schools. They have to come together, build their own schools, and pick somebody to be a teacher.
And not just that, but like people who were saying, oh, the low information black voter in the South. And it's like, no, they're not low information, because you have a different... racism smacks differently in the South from the North. It smacks very differently, so you have to be able to negotiate stuff. So it's I think that's where some of my anger at this movie's opening scrawl also comes from, is I'm like, come on.
So after God has the realization that he needs to crucify himself to learn mercy, God then smiles and takes a bit of a crucifixion pose as the camera zooms out and the scene goes back to the church and the Sunday class has dismissed.
Yes. That was a big bark.
Okay, this is the note that actually changes, because I have it in here and it says, I did not really care for this show overall. None of the music or songs spoke to me. I didn't like the condescending views towards black people. However, God being a bit more human and learning mercy from humans was an interesting thought experiment, and the whole show basically just tells the story of Genesis, but with racism.
Yep.
So that was my initial note when I was writing this down before Kay and I started to approach it from a philosophical viewpoint, start peeling back the onion that is this show. And I have to change that last note. It's like I do have to kind of pick and choose with this show. The biggest thing is throwing away that opening scrawl. As soon as I throw that away, the show has a different light. It is very interesting the way that they represent God in this, just almost being just a man, but with divine powers, and just the fact that you have this, it is, and it's something that isn't really talked about in religious studies, about the difference in God between the Old Testament and the New Testament.
It's not talked about outside of if your focus is religious studies. And even then, it's whether or not you decide to focus on that part.
But at the same time, there isn't really, there's not something that bridges those two, because you have the Old Testament, and then hundreds of years later, you have Jesus, and it's the telling of Jesus and those stories, didn't happen until 150 years after his death.
Yeah,
and then it was all...
At the very least, it's that. Because, there are apocryphal scriptures and stuff like that, but if you're studying from a Christian aspect, you don't ever branch the Old and the New Testament, really. There's nothing there. Because there's way more scriptures than just what we have in the Old Testament. If I remember right, in Judaism, Islam has the Quran, and that's completely different from the Christian Bible. So it's just a very... This was so interesting. And another thing that just came to my mind is that I think this movie was so successful, after a period of time, you just get sucked into this world. And I can't put myself in the mindset of a white person back in the day watching this. I can only...
Yeah, you don't want to either.
Yeah, and I don't want to. But I almost wonder if this had a if this had a side effect on some people.
If it maybe if it maybe opened them up, is that what you're thinking? Slightly,
it wouldn't
just a
have
little
opened
bit?
them up completely.
It just cracked the door, maybe.
Yeah, it may have cracked open the door a little bit, because after this you get Cabin in the Sky, you get Rex Ingram getting a lot more roles, you get more black shows. So I don't know if this did facilitate that at all or not.
It is a iffy well, I shouldn't say iffy. It is a complicated topic.
Yeah.
Mostly because the history of race relations in the United States is a complicated topic.
Mm-hmm.
Because even when you had, even when we go back and you had slavery, there were people who knew slavery was wrong that didn't have slaves.
Yeah.
So it's like, the way that morality works is it's like, there are people who knew that it was wrong to be othering another group of humans.
Yeah.
But the powers that be really liked having that power and control and money, and so it just kind of continues. And then it kind of trickles down, through the decades still. So even in the 1930s, you still have, segregation and Jim Crow and all that stuff. So you have slavery light going on, but there's still people who know that that's wrong. There's still people who know that it's wrong to be treating, quote unquote, all God's children differently.
Yeah, I'm just more thinking what the effect would have been like, because this was so popular, and you're having these Bible stories portrayed by an all-black cast, and that's something that American Christians hold that stuff so sacred. Like, it makes me wonder what seeds this might have planted in people to have their most holy thing presented to them and seeing the humanity. I wonder how many people got their opinion. Like, they didn't get their opinions completely flipped by this. This movie couldn't have done that.
Yeah, they didn't have their prejudices dissolved.
No,
but they may have had
might
them
have
softened.
been a seed.
Yeah, but at the same time, I almost wonder, like, it's very obvious why the show didn't take it one step further, because I feel like if you would have had Black Jesus, that would have been where a lot of people dropped off.
Yeah, that would have dropped off everybody.
Not everybody, but it would have dropped off a lot of people.
A lot of...
The people who weren't racist, it wouldn't have dropped them off.
Yeah.
Because they would have been like, well, everybody else is black, so by logic, Jesus would be black, even though Jesus lived in the Middle East, Jesus was brown.
Jesus was not white. He was not blonde. He was not blue-eyed. That would have been one heck of a recessive gene otherwise.
Jesus was a leucistic African.
Like, I sit here and I kind of wonder how many people had the first Jenga block taken out. I will say, though, that I don't think they could have gotten away with Black Jesus at all.
No, I think that's probably why they didn't even attempt it.
Yeah, because even your most well-meaning white people at the time probably still would not have been okay with that. Black people probably, if it was made by black people for black people in a black theater, that would have been one thing. But as soon as you see it in wide release, it's like, oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no.
Yeah, it would have been too upsetting to the established power dynamic, and that would have not sat well with the powers that be.
Yeah, it's kind of like when you've heard me talk about things that will happen that I will just be sitting there going, no, 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 this is going to be bad for me later. That's sort of, I think, where if there had been a Black Jesus moment, that would have been the thought process as you're sitting in the theater going, oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no.
You know what I will say, though? I don't... Would this be in the public domain now?
No.
Dang it.
36.
Well, what was the public domain now?
25, I want to say, because, wait. No.
Well, either when this is in the public domain, or maybe whoever holds the copyrights for it, they need to be brave and do a re-release of it, a reimagining of it, and I would actually like to see them carry it one step further and have it show God either going to Mary or...
Denzel!
Ooh!
Denzel!
Ooh.
You've been doing some amazing work right now with Fences and Ma Rainey's.
Denzel.
Get rid of the opening scroll. Let's update it. Let's make this.
Green Pastures needs an update.
Let's fix this because it's got such a good message.
It has a very good core.
It's one of those things that is so maddening about it. The core is so good.
The core, and I think that's what resonated with people, and that's what made it so successful.
Yeah,
was that it had such a good core. They just had to wrap it in a racist-friendly exterior, as to not alienate a wider audience for the time.
Yeah, in a racist and mostly Christian exterior, because there is a lot of the fluff that you have to keep to make it accessible to that audience. But again, because they do a very it's a very good way. They don't get too much wrong with what you would be teaching in Sunday school for Genesis through whatever the last book is. I can't remember what the last book of the Old Testament is. I'm bad.
Anyways.
But yeah, they do a very good retelling of it in the way that you would bring it to a Sunday school class, and not taking the basic story liberties are not really taken too much. They don't suddenly have, and a unicorn got on the ark too. They don't have that. They just keep it. They still keep it grounded in a reality that works. And yeah, this show.
This is one of
this show, man.
I might have had the biggest 180 out of with this show than I have with any other shows.
Yeah.
Just because I went into it not liking it, and by the end of it, I read my last note, I wasn't a fan of it. But then us talking about it changed my perception, and then I realized that there actually is a lot of good in it, and now I'm a fan of it.
Yeah.
Minus a few things.
There's some things that are really troubling.
And minus the 1930 things.
Yeah, the 1930s things, not great, but
interesting show, and needs a revisit, needs to be modernized. Because I know I had mentioned to you the other day that I kind of view this show a little bit as a mix between Godspell and Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, but it was before either of those in terms of production. But it has the feeling of both of those.
Yeah.
It's Old Testament, but it has a modern flair, modern quote unquote, because it takes place in the 1930s and all the people involved have 1930s clothing and stuff like that.
I would be curious to find out because I didn't see anything when I was doing the research for Godspell and Joseph. I would be curious to know if, Joseph is prior to Godspell. I would be curious to ask Weber and Schwartz, have you seen Green Pastures? Has that been a subconscious influence? Because in fact, it could just be that, no, it may not have even influenced him, because
I don't want Weber to know about it, because I don't want Weber to do anything with it, because Weber will make me not like it.
Weber is not a fool.
Love never dies.
Weber is not that much of a fool to try to take on Green Pastures. I don't think he would be foolish enough to do that, because he cannot be allowed near many, many properties. But because I don't know if I would have to do, and that would be more research. I would have to do some research into other biblical plays, and if any kind of took the same sort of route that Green Pastures did before Green Pastures, or if Green Pastures was the creator of that genre of, because it's not a liturgical play, because it was on Broadway. Liturgical, like church-based. It's not a play for a church, which technically Joseph was.
Oh.
Like, it was for that children's choir, and that's why it wasn't strictly a church play, but a church choir was the first to do it, back when it was a cantata. And I kind of wonder that with... This has me thinking so many things, and I'm sitting here going, I want to spend like a month researching it, but at the same time, I told myself I wouldn't do that.
Make a sticky note, and then just you can check up on it.
I will check up on this one, because, yeah, it's planted a lot of seeds in my brain.
Yeah, this one will kind of stick with me. And
yeah.
That's the thing, is as I'm looking at it, I'm going, it has the potential to be so much more. And I think what stuck with me, what made it stick in my brain, is that scene with God trying to block out Hezdrael. Because that scene was what flipped the switches. It started flipping switches in my brain. It took a while for my brain to make the connections, because it was having to get past my anger at that opening scroll. Yeah, the anger of that opening scroll stuck with me.
As soon as if you don't have that opening scroll, whole movie's different.
Seriously, if you were to show this for people, like now, I would just jump forward past the scroll and play it from there.
Yeah. That's an experiment to do.
You know, that would be an experiment. You get 10 different groups. One group you show the entirety, the other one you play it after the scroll, and then ask them their opinions.
Yeah. I don't need more experiments. But anyway, yeah, Green Pastures, y'all. This movie was complicated.
It made us think.
It made us think a lot.
It made us talk. It made us reflect.
Made me think a lot more than the next one that we're going to be doing, Will. Because I have seen the next one a lot more recently, and it's pretty straightforward. We will be jumping from Green Pastures to the one that we did this one to prepare for, which is Cabin in the Sky.
Is the Cabin in the Sky supposed to be heaven?
You'll find out.
I mean...
I will tell you that this will be influenced by 2 shows you have seen.
Which one is this?
3 shows you have seen.
One of them is... 3 shows
One is this. And we'll talk about what the other 2 are in my prepared notes, so that I don't give it away.
Okay.
But
don't give it away. Give it away now.
You know who will be back for us with Cabin in the Sky? Tone Deaf alumnus.
Rex?
No. Well, yes, Rex, but another one.
Who?
Lena Horne.
Yeah! Give me some Lena.
Yes. So, I mean, you won't like her as much in this one.
Oh.
But...
Does she sing?
Yes.
Cool.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
You can't have Lena Horne without her singing.
You can't have her without... Yeah. Anyway, next episode, we are going to do Cabin in the Sky.
Woo!
So, thank you all so much for listening to this wild, bizarre episode of Tone Deaf.
This bit of an Ouroboros, because we circled back in on ourselves and then just kept circling back in on ourselves.
Yeah, because it made us think.
It made us think.
A lot.
We had to pause for reflection.
Yes.
Which is good. I encourage everybody to question their own views on things, and when you receive new information, then take a moment to ponder and see if it gives you new ideas.
Absolutely. Speaking of, if you have any new ideas, how can they help us out?
Well, you can reach out to Kay and I on our home base, which is tonedeafmusical.com. There we have links to all of our wonderful social medias, our Twitters, our Instagrams, our Facebooks, as well as a link to the Cast Junkie Discord server, which is not safe for work, but, you know, as of late, it's not too bad. I mean,
it depends on how slap happy you are.
But the whole entire Cast Junkie Discord community, there's a lot of great shows there, and a nice community full of fun people, and you can come hang out and say hi.
Yes. If you want to help out the show, please drop a review on iTunes, Podchaser, Stitcher, wherever you get your podcasts. 5-star reviews really do help the show, helps us get up in the rankings, so that more people can find out and more people can learn.
And if you ask Kay to sing your review, Kay will sing the review on the show.
Yes.
And if you mention Latte in your review, who is the mostly silent co-host that you've heard throughout some of this episode with her tearing and drinking and chewing, she gets a cookie.
Yes. she gets herself a cookie. And if you want to go above and beyond, you can support us on our Patreon, which is Tone Deaf Musical. You can also buy t-shirts, sweaters, stickers, masks at our TeePublic, which is also Tone Deaf Musical and is linked on our website, tonedeafmusical.com. Anyway, I think that'll be it for this episode. I'm Kay.
I'm Warren.
And this has been Tone Deaf. Salad time. Woo! Let's get some salad. Gonna cover it in ranch and bacon bits, and then it's not healthy anymore.
Wait, hide the bacon in the lettuce.
Yay, hide the bacon in the lettuce. Eat the lettuce.